Yo, what's going on, guys? Mush back at it with another video, and you knew I had to talk about this story because this is getting a lot of traction, and a lot of you guys that are watchers of this channel love GOG, and I have always said that what I appreciate about GOG is the fact that they kind of tackle at their storefront in establishing their own identity. And when it comes to having a compelling storefront, I feel like beyond anything, that is the number one most important thing, that there's actually an identity to what you are doing, and you're just not trying to be Steam, but not Steam, in the sense that, yeah, Epic Games Store has free games, but free games isn't an identity that's actually going to lead to longevity and long-term growth, and there's another stat that we can talk about as far as that's concerned in a separate video. But the thing about GOG is that, okay, they have an identity. It's about having these DRM free games. It's about having some of these classic titles preserved. And are there games that I wish were available on GOG, and it's a problem to me that they're not on GOG, or a bit of an issue? Yeah, sure, but ultimately, GOG is still going forth with its identity. However, recently, there was a new interview with the games industry where GOG's managing director, Masej Globowski, which I probably butchered the pronunciation of his name, my apology, but spoke a little bit on it, and a lot of this is being turned into a Steam versus GOG thing, which I think GOG has done a fantastic job of staying away from it. When the Epic Games Store was established, a lot of it did come down to making it an Epic Games Store versus Steam kind of thing, which is a battle you are never going to win. It's just GG no re as far as that's concerned, at least in the immediate future, and especially when Epic Games Store went forth with that with a lot of lacking in features, and ultimately people do want a good service beyond anything. Quality games do help in terms of getting people into a service, but I think more than ever, it is really overstated how much a marquee exclusive can really get your foot in the door into a platform, especially when you're talking about on PC, where there are just so many options of games coming out every day. You need more, and it needs to be a quality service, and a service with an identity that's going to draw you on over. Steam has been around for so long, they've got tenure built in, and they've got a complete service, at least mostly complete in terms of the eyes of the customer base, and GOG is creating a service that's offering something different. It's not going at it from the point of, oh, GOG's got Breath of Fire 4, that's really going to draw a lot of people into using GOG, but no, having Breath of Fire 4 adds to GOG's identity. Did having Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin as a timed exclusive offer anything to Epic Games Store's identity, or having Metro Exodus as an exclusive, a timed exclusive on Epic Games Store, add anything to Epic Games Store's identity? No! Epic Games Store really doesn't have an identity outside of it's the service that you go to get free games. And that's where I think a lot of it was lost. Where, yeah, Breath of Fire 4 isn't going to draw a ton of people into GOG. However, it adds to the identity of this is where games are being preserved, and some classic titles that are beloved are being preserved. And the fact that's there, the fact that some of the classic Resident Evil titles are there, that adds to the overall idea of what GOG is going. But back to this interview, Globowski said this: Steam is obviously a Goliath. So for any company to try to tackle Steam, it's a very hard battle. We've seen Discord launch their store, we've seen Epic Games launch their store, and thanks to the lawsuit with Apple, we know how much it has cost them to launch this battle against Steam. So the fact that GOG is expanding, developing, and still kicking, I think it's a testament to the fact that GOG really has its space on the market with its mission of making games live forever. Right there, that is the mission, point blank, and that is something that's relevant to the consumer. Making games live forever. We get that? Okay, that's great. You can go with the idea that the Epic Games Store's identity it was developers first. At the end of the day, the customer base isn't going to care about that. At least I feel most of the customer base is not going to care about that. You need to have an identity that's going to draw the customer base in, and I do think GOG has that. Globowski continued by saying Steam is doing an awesome job, but it also has different values than GOG. Certainly, we can do more for classic, retro, and modern classics in terms of accessibility, in terms of discoverability, and while GOG is expanding the number of new game releases it carries, something Globowski attributed in part to more and more independent studios that are willing to work with independent stores, it's not going to try to beat Steam at that game. And that is ultimately something I can understand. I do think it's a little bit unfortunate that, you don't have a lot of the marquee titles that come out every year day one on GOG. I get there's the DRM layer to it. A lot of these games launch with DRM and whatnot. And, they're going to put Steam first and foremost. But for me, I would love to see some of the heavy hitters. Like, could you imagine if Resident Evil Requiem was day one available on GOG? I truly believe a lot of people would end up checking that game out on GOG, because that's a game that I think the idea of making a game live forever, people would want to make that game live forever, but it's not available on GOG day one, and maybe that's not what GOG is tackling. And if you focus on that identity first, ultimately there are enough games to go around. I think that is the element that a lot of people are coming to realize, that yes, having the day one games is important, but at the same time, if you focus on that idea of making games live forever and your identity, then you're drawing people in via the service, what the service offers and the values of the service, and that is more powerful than any one game drawing somebody over. And I totally agree with that. I totally get the idea of that. However, why not have both? You know what I'm saying? I would love to have both. I think it's great that Expedition 33 ultimately came to GOG, and that's one of those games that I think will do very well on GOG. But I look at games like Resident Evil Requiem or Neo 3, or, some of the big games coming out, and it would be great if they were just available on GOG right out the gate. I get that there are hurdles to cross, but nevertheless, GOG has its own strengths and really should focus on maintaining them and even strengthening them. There is no need to try to be like others. GOG has its own identity and its own uniqueness, which is very much appreciated by gamers. GOG is also a very curated platform, he said, while Steam is obviously not. This is, I think, one of our strengths. We don't release hundreds of games daily, 95% of which are really not super high in quality. So that statement right there is what is catching fire and how this has devolved into a GOG versus Steam thing. GOG is different in that regard, but I don't think Steam should go into the direction of heavily policing their releases. Is there some garbage? Are there some garbage titles released on Steam? Absolutely, but what I will say is a game that's garbage to me or a game that's garbage to you might be the opposite to somebody else. And I cover Steam deals all the time, and we talk about X game, Y game. You know how many times I cover what I think are great games, and I see in the comment section, these games are garbage, these games suck, these games are trash, etc., etc. Different people have different opinions, and if I recommend or I mention a game like Freedom Fighters, which goes on sale for $1.49, you know how many people are gonna watch that video? They might not even comment, but look at a game like that and think it's garbage. It's gonna be a lot of people, but guess what? Freedom Fighters has a really strong reception on Steam, and there's a lot of people that love that game. It's games like that that it's great to have them on Steam. And beyond that, yes, there are games that are at a far, far lesser quality level than Freedom Fighters that are being released. I don't know why. I'm not even trying to pick on Freedom Fighters. Like, Freedom Fighters is done by IO Interactive, a world-renowned studio. But, that's just the game I'm throwing out that I've mentioned in videos that of games that are under $2. But even, mean games, people can have fun with them for whatever reason. And at the end of the day, I feel like Steam does a fairly good job of promoting the games relevant to you. I don't know about you guys, but when I go into the new releases, is there some, that game's coming out or that game's coming out and I don't have interest in them? Yeah, definitely. If you go into the new and trending section, however, in terms of the front page, in terms of the discount, like, dude, the games that are being recommended to me right now, like pulling up my Steam page, is Routine. For example. Routine's a game that I would definitely play and I would have interest in. Let's go to the front page. Quarantine Zone, the last check. Been hearing a lot about this game as well. It's got a mostly positive reception. Okay, that's a somewhat relevant new release to me. Alright, I don't know about NBA 2K26. Relax there, Steam. Avatar Frontiers of Pandora. Third-person mode just came out. I have that on Ubisoft Connect. They're mentioning Star Wars The Old Republic to me. And they're mentioning Ark, Repo, games of that nature. Like, I feel like those are titles that I would at least have interest in. And, with how they do the sales and structures, a lot of the games that you own aren't going to be in the front pages. But again, I feel like Steam does a fairly good job of curating games that'll be relevant to you. Recommended based on the games you play. I guess they really want me to get that copy of Mind's Eye in my library. But I digress. Like, yes, there's a lot of games coming out on Steam, but I feel like it should be on the individual to know about these games and, be aware of the big games coming out. And it's pretty easy to find everything. And, well, look, I am totally against the games that are coming out with malware and things like that. That's only happened a very, very few amount of times, but I don't think it has to be a nuclear option either way. I don't think we have to eliminate all of the perceived garbage, or perceived garbage by me, because again, for somebody else, that could be totally different, but that's not inherently wrong. GOG doing something different than Steam, it being a more curated platform, I think that's fine. Like, whatever. I don't expect GOG to have hundreds of games every day, and I don't want Steam to suddenly go away from releasing a ton of games and being a super accessible platform for a lot of studios to put their game out on and add a lot more hurdles. Would I like another hurdle here or there, to avoid malware being released on Steam? Yeah, absolutely, but that's only happened a few times, but a few times is still way too much for something like that happening. And it was continued, Steam is winning with its ease of use in that regard. I think much can be done in GOG without losing its core values and the way it operates in general. One of the things that won't be changing under the new ownership is GOG's foundational principle, no DRM. This is a core value of GOG, and there's no signs that it might die in any visible future. This is not only an ethical value, but it's also very pragmatic. It helps people to enjoy games no matter what happens with the software provided by the platform or what internet connection they have. Honestly, I don't think there was anything wrong said, and I didn't even see anything in this interview that he was attacking Steam. It's just Steam is a little bit different. And maybe saying 95% of the games are not super high in quality, that is probably the verbiage I would have stayed away from. But let's be honest, like, if you really assess the Steam library, and quality is a subjective metric, nobody can definitively say 95% of the daily releases are garbage, but you talk to each individual person about their subjective opinion. You sit them down and you look through all of the games that come out on Steam on any given day. How many of them to them are gonna be super high in quality verbatim? But I think people took that and they're like, you're saying that Steam should really track down how many games are coming out every day, which I think some people agree with that. However, I don't think that's what he was even saying at all. I just think he's saying this is one element that makes GOG different. Now, beyond all of this, what I am really curious about, now that GOG has separated from CDPR, what is going to be the long-term financial viability of this platform? That is the ultimate issue with any of these storefronts. I think GOG has an appeal because it's drawing people with the storefront first. It's not trying to get people in based on free games that are offered for a week. It's getting people in based on the identity of the storefront. Can it cultivate enough people that are regularly buying their games on GOG and buying multiple games on GOG? It's not about coming into GOG and buying one game and then moving on. It's about having GOG as a consistent platform that you utilize and you're supporting it regularly. Are there enough people that are going to be using GOG in that way that GOG can be a successful platform? I wonder about that, and I don't know. And now they are on their own, and I'm curious about, a year from now, 2 years from now, 3 years from now, where they're really at. I think ultimately it has a ceiling, because I think while nerds like me talk about game preservation and DRM free and things like that, I think when you look at the broader picture and the more casual audience, and that casual audience on PC is still overwhelmingly the vast majority, and casual is a relative term. I think about my boys that play 10, 15 games a year, which that's a relatively high number, I feel. I even consider them a bit casual because they're not following the day-to-day news cycle. They're not worried about DRMs and things of that nature, and I think most people fall into that category. But let me know what you guys think. I do think some of this is being misconstrued a little bit, that GOG was attacking Steam or anything like that. I just think he pointed something out that differentiates GOG from Steam, but I don't think he was suggesting that Steam needs to do something differently. Rather, he's saying that GOG is doing something differently, and that could be perceived as a strength of GOG, that could be perceived as a weakness. For Steam, you can perceive that as a weakness, that they release hundreds of games, or you could perceive that as a strength. That's up to you, and that's why having multiple storefronts is a good thing, because there are going to be different storefronts tailored to different people, which is the whole point of it all. But that'll do it for me. Let me know all of your thoughts in the comment section down below. As always, thanks for watching, and I will catch you guys in the next one. Peace out. Hey, what's going on, guys? Mush here again. Hope you enjoyed the video. As you guys might know, YouTube's notification system is sometimes a little bit wonky, even if you're subscribed to the channel. Maybe you're not abundantly aware that I uploaded a video. To remedy that situation, make sure you hit the bell notification button. This way, whenever I upload a new video, and I try to upload as consistently as possible, you will be notified directly of the upload, and you can watch it as soon as it goes live. I would really appreciate if you guys hit that button so you can stay up to date with all of the content I'm posting. But as always, guys, thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace out.